Think you know all the cool sleepers? Think again. These weird rides are hiding serious power under the hood, and you've probably never even heard of them. Number 15, 1964, Studebaker Lark Daytona two-door sedan, R2 supercharged. First of all, the 1964 Studebaker Lark Daytona two-door sedan might look like a normal old car from the outside, but it's actually way more interesting underneath. It came from Canada, built at Studebaker's Hamilton, Ontario plant, and was meant to be a sporty, fun version of a small car. But here's where things start to get weird, in the best way. Next, this car had a V8 engine with 289 cubic inches of power, which was already strong. But this one was upgraded to something called R2 specs. That means it had a supercharger, a bigger camshaft, and a special carburetor that gave it a lot more boost. Even though it was a regular-looking two-door sedan, it could surprise way faster cars thanks to all the stuff hidden under the hood. After that, the transmission was swapped out for a 4-speed manual, which made it way more fun to drive. It also had a rear end called twin traction, with 3.3 1-to-1 gears, so it was better at putting the power down. A custom drive shaft and performance mufflers were added too, just to make sure it sounded mean and drove smooth. Then, the inside of the car was redone completely. Originally, it had a blue interior, but during a full restoration, it was changed to black. A new shifter from Hurst was installed, and even though the second gear has little wear now, it still shifts like a real muscle car from back in the day. Also, some other small but cool things were added, like a 160-mile-per-hour speedometer and a custom tachometer. It even has pictures from the restoration showing the engine work and everything that was done in 2014. Finally, what makes it really strange is that it still looks like a basic old Studebaker sedan. Kind of plain, honestly, but it has the same supercharged engine used in the Avanti, which was Studebaker's high-performance sports car. It's like a grandpa car that secretly went to the gym and got super strong. That's what makes this Daytona one of the weirdest sleeper cars you've probably never heard of. Number 14, 1969, AMC Rambler Rogue 390. This car came with a gigantic engine for how small and ordinary it looked. The 1969 AMC Rambler Rogue 390 had a 390 cubic inch V8 engine that made 315 horsepower and 425 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot of power packed into a compact body that looked more like something your grandma would drive to church. Next, the transmission wasn't your regular shifter either. It had a Hurst shifted T10 4-speed manual transmission, which made it feel more like a race car than a grocery getter. It also had a limited slip rear differential called Twin Grip, which helped the rear tires get better traction when you floored it. That meant it could launch off the line way better than most people expected. Then there was the paint. This thing only came in 2 wild color combos. The A scheme was red, white, and blue, like full-on American flag energy. The B scheme was a bit more subtle, with red, black, and white. Either way, it was super loud and made the car look like a rolling billboard. People actually made fun of it for looking like a tri-colored Nickelodeon. Also, the suspension and brakes were way upgraded. It had heavy-duty springs, shocks, an anti-sway bar, and anti-hop rear links, which helped it stay planted during hard driving. Up front, it had disc brakes and drums in the rear, plus power assist. That meant it could actually stop as well as it could go, which wasn't always the case back then. Besides that, the hood was fiberglass with a huge air scoop. That wasn't just for show. It really worked and fed air to the engine. The scoop stuck up, and so many people said it looked like a dog sniffing the wind. On top of that, it came with a Go package, which gave it racing stripes, wheel flares, and funky aluminum wheels, with Goodyear polyglass tires. Finally, inside it was just as weird. It had standard Rogue seats, but added a big tachometer strapped to the steering column like an afterthought. Only 1,512 of these were made, and most people called it the Scrambler, even though the real name was AMC Rambler Rogue 390. Number 13, 1965, Buick Skylark Grand Sport. So, here's a weird one. The 1965 Buick Skylark Grand Sport. Most people wouldn't even think of it as a muscle car, but it actually came with a massive 401 cubic inch V8 engine. Buick just called it the 400 to make it fit the rules General Motors had back then. Even with the sneaky name change, it still pushed out 325 horsepower and a wild 445 pound-feet of torque. Now, what made it even stranger was that it wasn't just a normal Skylark with a big engine dropped in. Buick gave it the convertible's stronger frame on every version, hardtop, coupe, or convertible, just to make sure the body didn't twist too much under all that torque. It also has heavy-duty shocks, springs, and a thick sway bar up front. Plus, they upgraded the rear suspension to keep the axle from jumping around under power. All of that actually made it handle better than people expected. After that, the transmission options were kind of all over the place. You could get a 3-speed manual, a 4-speed manual, or this odd 2-speed automatic called the Super Turbine 300. People called it a 2.5-speed because of this weird switch pitch feature in the torque converter. Sounds complicated, but it worked okay for the time. With the automatic, it could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.4 seconds, which wasn't bad, but not as quick as a Pontiac GTO or Dodge with a big 426. What really made it a sleeper was how smooth and quiet it was for a muscle car. It had bucket seats, but they were more comfortable than sporty. It even had air conditioning, power steering, and brakes, which added a lot of weight. The front of the car ended up carrying more than half the total weight, which made handling kind of sketchy, especially on wet roads. Finally, the brakes were the weak point. They were just 9.5-inch drums in the front, and they faded fast under pressure. It made stopping this nearly 4,300-pound car pretty nerve-wracking. Buick bragged about performance, but it was more of a cruising machine than a real sports car. Number 12, 1971, Plymouth Satellite Sebring Plus. The 1971 Plymouth Satellite Sebring Plus is a sneaky, unsuspecting car that might surprise you once you start digging into its features. On the surface, it looks like a typical cruiser, but there's a lot more hidden under its smooth, rounded fuselage styling. This was part of Plymouth's design era, focused on a sleek, airplane-like appearance, which was all the rage back then. What's particularly interesting about this model is that the 2-door and 4-door versions didn't even share the same sheet metal, something that was pretty rare for the time. The Sebring Plus sat at the higher end of the Satellite lineup. All of these cars had VIN numbers that began with R for Satellite, with the RP code signifying the premium version. This premium trim meant the Sebring Plus came with better materials inside, more trim pieces, and a name that gave it a little extra flair. While most of these cars were powered by the 318 cubic inch V8, which made it more of a comfortable cruiser than a muscle car, there was more to the Sebring Plus than met the eye. The sleeper potential of the Sebring Plus is what makes it especially interesting. The interior, with its bucket seats and center console, was quite fancy for a car of this type. The factory sunroof and premium features made it feel like a luxury cruiser, but it wasn't built to be just that. The car came with basic features like drum brakes and an 8.25-inch rear axle, which were fine for daily driving but didn't exactly make it drag strip ready. However, the Sebring Plus had plenty of room for upgrades. The small 318 V8 could easily be swapped out for a bigger block or even a modern Hemi engine, making it an even more potent performer. Despite its basic setup, this car had a perfect blend of comfort and muscle, allowing it to be an unexpected sleeper with huge potential. It was a mix of luxury and power in a package that didn't scream performance at first glance. Number 11, 1977, Pontiac CanAm. The 1977 Pontiac CanAm might look like just another old Le Mans, but it's way weirder than that. It came from an idea to bring back the GTO, but Pontiac didn't want to call it that, so they teamed up with a company called Motortown and built something kind of secret. It was based on the Le Mans Sport Coupe and only sold for about 6 months. Next, the way it was built was really different. Pontiac made the regular Le Mans at their factory, then sent the car to Motortown to get all the cool Can-Am parts. That took about 3 days, and then the car went back to Pontiac to get sent to dealers. That back and forth is kind of nuts, and it made the Can-Am feel more like a custom car than something straight from a factory. Also, it had this giant shaker hood scoop from the Trans Am, which made it look like a muscle car, even though it wasn't super powerful for the time. It came with a Pontiac 400 cubic inch V8 that made 200 horsepower, or if you lived in California, it had an Oldsmobile 403 cubic inch V8 with 185 horsepower. That's not much today, but back in the late 70s, that was still strong. Then there's the paint and stripes. The whole car was white with bright orange, yellow, and gold stripes. It even had a big ducktail spoiler on the back. The quarter windows had louvers. The wheels matched the body color, and it had special Can-Am badges everywhere. Even the inside had a unique dashboard from the Grand Prix, which made it feel way fancier than a normal Le Mans. Lastly, what's really weird is how rare it is. Pontiac planned to make 5,000 of them, but the whole project was suddenly stopped. Some people say a part broke, others say Pontiac just lost interest. Either way, they only made about 1,300 cars, and no one knows the exact number of how many had which engine. That mystery makes it even more of a strange and cool sleeper. Number 10, 1979, AMC Spirit AMX 304 V8. The 1979 AMC Spirit AMX had one of the wildest looks for a car that wasn't actually fast. It had big flared fenders, a sporty front chin spoiler, and a giant rear deck spoiler that looked like it came off a race car. But under all that flashy styling was a small V8 that only made around 125 horsepower. That was from a 304 cubic inch V8 engine with a 2-barrel carburetor and a quiet exhaust system that still made a cool gurgle when you stepped on the gas. Next up, AMC didn't just slap on a motor and call it a day. They gave this car a rally-tuned suspension with thick sway bars in the front and back, plus racing-style adjustable shocks from a company called Gabriel. It even had power steering that was harder to turn on purpose, just to make it feel sportier. The brakes were solid too, with 10.8-inch front discs and wide drum brakes in the back, which was a big deal for a car that looked like a cousin of the Gremlin. After that, let's talk about the interior. AMC added sporty bucket seats and a center console with a real floor shifter. There was even a gauge package with 8 dials, including a vacuum gauge to show engine performance. The dashboard had fake aluminum trim and a little AMX badge to remind you this wasn't just a regular Spirit. Honestly, it looked way cooler than it had any right to. Then again, even though it looked wild and had all this sports stuff, it was pretty slow. It did 0 to 60 miles per hour in 10.6 seconds and only hit the quarter mile in about 17.6 seconds. Still, for the time, that wasn't too bad. The top speed was just over 100 miles per hour, and you could get almost 20 miles per gallon on the highway, which was decent back then. Finally, the wheels were called TurboCast 2 and were 14 inches wide, with special raised white letter tires that made the car look ready for a race it was never going to win. This was the last AMC passenger car to ever come with a factory V8, which makes it kind of special, even if it wasn't exactly fast. Number 9, 1973, Chevy Chevel Laguna 454. The 1973 Chevy Chevel Laguna looked more like a fancy cruiser than anything fast. It had a body-colored nose made of soft urethane that could bounce back from little bumps, and the bumpers had rubber strips to match. The front end was completely different from regular Chevels, and it had its own special grille, parking lights, and even its own Laguna badges. The rear bumper matched the front in style, and the roof had chrome trim just to add more class. Next, the inside tried hard to be upscale. It came with fancy-looking wood pattern vinyl on the dashboard and a steering wheel that matched the rest of the interior color. The bucket seats could swivel out, which was super weird and kind of cool, almost like they were trying to make it feel like a living room chair. You could get a center console, a map lamp, and even a power sunroof made completely out of metal. Then came the engine stuff, and that's where it got interesting. The base motor was a 350 cubic inch V8 with a 2-barrel carburetor that only made about 145 horsepower. But the big surprise was the optional 454 cubic inch V8 that made 245 horsepower. If you wanted that, you had to get power steering, power brakes, and a bigger battery too. You couldn't even get the regular 3-speed stick with it, only the automatic or a special 4-speed if you also picked the sport suspension. After that, the suspension was beefed up for better handling. It had coil springs all around and a rear suspension with 4 arms to keep it steady. Safety was also a big part, with a new frame design and strong roof pillars to help if the car rolled over. The front bumper even had hydraulic cylinders that let it squish in a crash and bounce back afterward. Finally, this Laguna even had a weird set of wheels called Turbine Eye. They were steel underneath, but had plastic faces that looked like fancy aluminum wheels. It was kind of pretending to be more expensive than it was. It might not have looked like a sleeper, but if you ordered the big engine, it totally was. Number 8, 1986. Mercury Marquis LTS. The 1986 Mercury Marquis LTS is a car that might not look like it belongs in the performance category, but it sure has some surprising features. This car, part of Mercury's lineup, was actually a sleeper in disguise. Underneath its conservative exterior, it packed a powerful punch. The LTS model was only available in Canada and came with a high-output 302 cubic inch Windsor V8 engine, which wasn't something you'd expect from a luxury sedan. This engine gave it a bit more grunt than most people imagined, especially considering its size. Next, the Mercury Marquis LTS wasn't just about power. It also had the rare Ford AOD 4-speed automatic transmission that helped it cruise comfortably at higher speeds. The car's design wasn't particularly flashy, with its boxy shape and classic sedan look. But the engine under the hood told a different story. It wasn't trying to be flashy, it was just quietly powerful, which is what made it a true sleeper. Additionally, the handling of this car was also somewhat of a surprise. While the Marquis LTS wasn't built to be a corner carver, it still had a smooth ride thanks to its full-size Panther-based platform. It had a comfortable feel on the road, absorbing bumps like a traditional luxury car. But when you wanted to push it, the V8 delivered more than you'd expect. It wasn't a sports car, but it could still make a decent impression when needed. Moreover, the LTS didn't just impress with its performance, it was also a bit of a collector's oddity. It was rare, especially in the US, and its combination of luxury features with a solid V8 made it an interesting choice for anyone who wanted a car that could fly under the radar. The Marquis LTS had leather seats, power accessories, and all the other luxuries you'd expect from a Mercury, but with an engine that hinted at more. Finally, the Mercury Marquis LTS stands out as one of those cars that didn't try to scream performance, but had it hidden under the surface. It wasn't about flashy styling. It was about surprising you with its capabilities when you least expected it. Number 7, 1989. Dodge Shelby Dakota. The 1989 Dodge Shelby Dakota is definitely not what you'd expect from a typical pickup truck. It was a performance version of the standard Dakota, but with a twist that no one saw coming. Dodge decided to partner with Carroll Shelby, who was famous for turning regular cars into speed machines. Instead of a normal work truck, they created a muscle truck, complete with a V8 engine and sporty features. Next, under the hood, the Shelby Dakota packed a 318 cubic inch V8 engine, which was pretty rare for a compact pickup back then. This engine was fuel-injected and paired with a 4-speed automatic transmission with electronic overdrive. To make sure everything fit, they swapped out the regular fan for an electric one, which bumped the power up by 5 horsepower, giving it a total of 175 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. While that might not sound like a lot compared to today's trucks, it was a pretty big deal in 1989. Then, the exterior of the truck was far from ordinary. It came with blacked-out bumpers, grille, and fender flares. To make sure everyone knew this was something special, Shelby slapped on some distinctive graphics on the sides and tailgate. It had a sporty look with a body-colored light bar, Shelby 5-spoke wheels, and Goodyear Eagle GT plus 4 tires. It even had a front air dam to add to its aggressive stance. Additionally, the interior of the Shelby Dakota had some cool upgrades. It had a red bench seat with charcoal inserts, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, and a nameplate showing its production number. It also came with a full set of instruments, including a 125 miles per hour speedometer, a tachometer, and a voltage gauge. For entertainment, it had an AM/FM stereo, with a cassette player and 4 speakers. Finally, despite being a muscle truck, the Shelby Dakota was pretty rare. Only 1,475 of these trucks were made in 1989, with just a small number of them being red or white. It wasn't fast by today's standards, but it was definitely a standout in its time. Number 6, 1984, Ford LTD LX 5.0. The 1984 Ford LTD LX5 is one of those cars that you'd never guess is hiding a bit of a surprise. At first glance, it looks like a regular sedan, but Ford actually put a lot of performance into this model without anyone really noticing. They took the standard LTD, which shared a chassis with the Ford Mustang, and gave it some serious upgrades that made it a sleeper car. To begin with, under the hood, the LTD LX has a 302 cubic inch V8 engine. This isn't just any regular V8 though, it's a throttle body injected one that delivers about 165 horsepower, which was decent for the time. But what really sets it apart is the suspension. Ford borrowed parts from other models, like the Mustang and the Thunderbird, to make the LTDLX handle better. It has a 4-link coil spring rear suspension from the Thunderbird, bigger brakes from the Wagon, and quick steering. It was like Ford had taken a normal sedan and made it perform like a sports car without anyone really realizing it. Next, the interior might seem plain, but it actually had some cool features. It came with front bucket seats that had inflatable lumbar support, which was pretty advanced for a car back then. The driver's seat was power adjustable with 6 different settings. The car even had a center console, but it only came with the automatic transmission, which was a letdown for anyone who wanted a manual. The transmission that came with the car was the AOD automatic, and it made the car pretty good for long highway trips. Despite that, the car's sporty potential wasn't fully realized due to the lack of a manual option. Moreover, the exterior looked like just another family sedan, but with blacked-out trim and a slightly sportier look. It had tires that were a bit more performance-oriented and could handle the car's upgrades well. But despite all these improvements, the car never really took off. Ford only made about 3,260 of them, and many people didn't even know it existed. Still, if you knew what to look for, the LTDLX5 could definitely surprise you on the road. Number 5, 1983, Chevy Malibu 9, C1 Police Package. So, the 1983 Chevy Malibu 9 C1 Police Package is definitely one of those cars that doesn't look like much at first. But under the surface, it's packed with features that make it stand out. The car is painted white with a Pennsylvania State Police livery, complete with blue on the roof and hood. It looks like a regular cruiser, but it's equipped with all sorts of police spec gear that you wouldn't expect from a regular Malibu. For starters, the Malibu is powered by a 305 cubic inch V8HO engine, which is paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. This engine is definitely more than what you'd find in a regular Malibu. It's a high-output V8, and it's been built to handle the tough demands of police work. The car also has a heavy-duty braking system, reinforced frame, and a special suspension that can handle more weight and stress than a standard car. It even has an oil cooler and power steering cooler to keep everything running smoothly. Inside, it's not your typical Malibu either. The seats are front bucket style, with blue vinyl and cloth, and it's equipped with a police spec instrument cluster. It has a speedometer that goes up to 120 miles per hour, plus gauges for fuel, voltage, coolant, and oil pressure. The car also comes with some old-school police equipment like radios, a siren, and even a first aid kit. The dashboard has a few extra controls for the lights and siren, which makes it feel like a real police car. Even the wheels and tires are unusual. The car has steel 14-inch wheels, with Chevrolet bowtie hubcaps and BF Goodrich radial TA tires. It also has a full-size spare tire and a set of red flag highway markers stored in the trunk. It's all part of what makes this Malibu a weird sleeper. It may look like a regular old Malibu, but it has the heart and soul of a police car built to perform. Number 4, 1991, Dodge Spirit RT. The 1991 Dodge Spirit RT is definitely a sleeper car you wouldn't expect to be so fast. On the outside, it looks like any other 4-door sedan, but underneath, it packs a punch. Under the hood, it has a turbocharged 134 cubic inch inline 4-cylinder engine, which is a lot more powerful than you'd think for a car like this. This engine cranks out 224 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 217 pounds-feet of torque at just 2,800 RPM. It's quick, hitting 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds, which is pretty impressive for a car that doesn't look like a sports car. Moreover, the engine is backed by a Getrag 5-speed manual transmission that's specially made to handle the turbo motor's power. This high-performance transmission has heavy-duty parts, including a 4-pinion differential. The car can reach an advertised top speed of 142 miles per hour, which is fast for a sedan, and it offers a decent fuel economy of 19 miles per gallon in the city and 27 miles per gallon on the highway, although that's with the turbo not being spooled up. Additionally, the Spirit RT's suspension is tuned to match its powerful engine. It has special spring and shock rates, along with anti-roll bars on both the front and rear. The front suspension's roll center was raised, and the alignment was adjusted to make the car handle even better. The car also comes with 4-wheel disc brakes, and there's an optional anti-lock braking system if you want extra safety. Inside, the car's quiet and smooth, thanks to its counterbalance shafts that help reduce vibration in the engine. This makes the car feel more refined than you'd expect. The torque curve is flat, giving it a broad power band, which makes it really fun to drive once you get it going. However, there's a small catch. If you don't rev the engine up enough, it won't give you much power right off the line. But once you get the engine spinning, it delivers plenty of power all the way to its redline. Number 3, 1994 Buick Roadmaster Estate Wagon LT1. So, the 1994 Buick Roadmaster Estate Wagon LT1 is a weird car because it doesn't look anything like a performance vehicle. But under the hood, it's hiding a small block V8 that shares a lot of DNA with the Chevrolet Corvette's LT1 engine. It doesn't scream fast car, right? It looks like a classic family wagon, but it has 260 horsepower, which is a lot for a car this big. And despite being a full-size wagon, it can go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 7 seconds, which is actually pretty fast for something that's meant to haul groceries, not race down the street. What's also strange about this car is the engine. It's not exactly the same as the Corvette's LT1. It uses iron heads instead of aluminum ones, which lowers the horsepower a little. But it's also tuned to run on regular 87-octane fuel, which is kind of surprising for a V8 that packs this much punch. On top of that, it has a 2.93 final drive ratio, which is a little weird for a car that could easily be a sports car. But it helps with fuel efficiency, making it a bit more practical than it looks. Then there's the way the Buick Roadmaster was built. It's a big, heavy wagon, but it still manages to be fun if you start tweaking the engine. It's got air shocks and a towing package, so it can handle heavy loads, and you can even level out the rear if needed. So, while it looks like something your grandparents might drive, with the right modifications, this car can turn into a surprisingly quick and fun ride. Ultimately, this car's weird because it hides all that power and performance beneath a family car's exterior, and you wouldn't expect something so practical to have so much potential to be a sleeper when it comes to speed. It's one of those cars that surprises you the moment you take it out for a spin. Number 2, 1994 Chevy Caprice 9 C1 LT1. The 1994 Chevy Caprice 9 C1 LT1 is definitely a weird sleeper car. At first glance, it just looks like an old police cruiser, nothing special at all. But under the hood, this thing hides an engine from the Chevrolet Corvette, the LT1 small block V8. It's got 260 horsepower, which is pretty surprising for a car that was used as a cop car. It doesn't look fast, but it sure can be. The car is built with a suspension and frame that make it super tough, so it's ready to handle a lot more than just normal driving. Moreover, the 9C1 version of the Caprice has all these extra police features that make it stand out. For example, it has 4-wheel disc anti-lock brakes, a limited slip differential, and a heavy-duty suspension, making it not just fast, but durable too. It's kind of like a ruggedized version of the Caprice with all the power of the Impala SS, but with more ground clearance and a better ability to take on rough conditions. And even though the car looks like it's for everyday use, the interior is stripped down with a vinyl rear seat and rubber floors, making it super easy to clean up. Interestingly, the previous owner tried to make it look like an Impala SS by adding some emblems and a grille, but it's actually more fun than an Impala SS in some ways. The car doesn't even have cruise control, but that's not an issue when you're flying down the highway. It's got that aggressive LT1 engine that makes driving it feel like you're in something much faster and sportier than a family car. Overall, it's a weird sleeper because it's a car that looks like a boring police vehicle, but actually has all the power and performance of a performance car. It's like a hidden gem that catches everyone by surprise. Number 1, 1992 Oldsmobile Achieva SCXW41. The 1992 Oldsmobile Achieva SCXW41 is a weird car in the best possible way. It's not your typical compact sedan, it's got the heart of a sports car, but in a package most people would overlook. Powered by 140 cubic inch W41LG0 Quad 4 engine, it delivers an impressive 190 horsepower and 160 pound-feet of torque. This engine is paired with a 5-speed manual transmission, giving the driver full control over this surprisingly powerful machine. What makes this car even weirder is the suspension setup. The SCX came with the FX3 package, which included electronically adjustable struts, larger front sway bars, and a wider rear axle with dual sway bars. This is a setup you wouldn't expect to see in a car like this, but it made the Achieva SCX handle way better than you'd imagine for a compact sedan. The whole setup was designed for improved handling and better performance, making it stand out from the regular Achieva models. Then, there's the body. The Achieva SCX comes with a unique front bumper, fog lights, and a rear spoiler, giving it a more aggressive look. Add in the W41 decals on the fenders and doors, and you have a car that looks like it's built for speed but still flies under the radar. And let's not forget the interior, with its gray cloth upholstery, air conditioning, cruise control, and power windows. It's comfortable, but it also gives off the vibe that it's more than just an average sedan. Overall, it's a sleeper car with a wild engine and performance features that most people would never guess were packed into an Oldsmobile Achieva. It's the kind of car you wouldn't expect to be fast, but it definitely surprises you. Got a favorite sleeper from the list? Drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more hidden car stories.